If I could paint a scenario where, for those who will refer to what they call the benevolent dictatorships, for instance, they give examples of the Lee Kuan Yews, what they did when they came in, how they developed Singapore, and then you look at the recent history of Malaysia, for instance, where the military comes in, takes over, then at some point civilians come back in, and we see the progress that the country has made. Why does ours seem so intractable? What's the distinguishing difference between those ones and ours?
That's a very good question, but I think you have to compare apples with apples and not apples with oranges. Now, those two examples you've given me, Singapore and Malaysia, are fundamentally...
And Thailand.
And Thailand, I beg your pardon. They're fundamentally different because they're much less heterogeneous than Nigeria is. So, for example, in Singapore, you're talking about the Malays and the Chinese, that's it. Nigeria, as we see it, is people talk about a conglomeration of tribes. I talk about a conglomeration of nations. If you examine it, look at the, and this is the bit I know best, so I'll talk about it, the Yorubas in the southwest. The population of Yorubas in this country is bigger than the population of every country in the European Union, bar 3. So if you take Germany and France and the United Kingdom out of the equation, the Yoruba nation is bigger than every other country in the EU. It's not a tribe, it's a nation. So try and put a conglomeration of different nations together. And you then have to understand that if you're going to make that work, there has to be a sense of give and take. And I come back to my primary thesis, which is the corrosive effect of military rule on this country. I don't think Nigeria is a federal republic. We are not a federal republic at all. We are in name.
Just a name?
Absolutely. Because the power, the concentration of power at the center, means that those states are really not federating units. They are simply branch offices of a conglomerate with a headquarters in Abuja.
But the Constitution says we're a federal republic.
What powers does the Constitution give the states?
Do you have a problem with the Constitution because it was a document by the military?
I think the current Constitution is not fit for purpose. I mean, why on earth do we have a Constitution, for example? I mean, and it sounds like a frivolous one. If you say that the government is elected by the people to serve the people, on what basis, therefore, does that same Constitution confer immunity for criminal actions on certain members of the government? We elected them. They work for us. We pay them. How can they have immunity from wrongdoing? That's a nonsense. The proper federal republics, think about what happened in the United States, for example. There is nowhere in the US Constitution that any governor or president has immunity from criminal prosecution. And it was asserted by Bill Clinton when he was president, when he went to the Supreme Court to try and stop the civil trial relating to Paula Jones. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled that he has no immunity from any, nobody's above the law. But we have a constitution that says while you're in office, you cannot be prosecuted. That's nonsense.
When you speak to people in the streets, which you relate to it, you talk about that on a regular basis, what kind of sense do they give you in terms of perhaps a sense of history?
I think that I would like to go back to where we started. I may not quite agree on the fact that we are several nations in a country. As a result, that could be the result for our being where we are today. I think that...
Perhaps saying that it's maybe a little more difficult.
Yes.
If there isn't that give and take.
No. It's a lot more fundamental. I'm here in this studio. We're friends. For as long as there's a bond that binds us together, we have not been able to establish the national vision which makes us a nation. Nothing ties us together.
Yeah, isn't that part of what he's saying?
You
if
know,
you have more,
it's
more difficult to establish that bond than if you have just two.
No, it's not. Two of us can be brothers and we don't agree. I mean, we are the same mother, same father. We don't agree because we lack the fundamentals. On the other hand, you and Gimba could be best of friends. You are not from the same state, you are not from the same parents, but you have the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? One, respect. You respect me, I respect you. Okay? Two, I know you have your right, I have my right. So I know the limit of my right and your right to your right. There's something that my wife says that I find so instructive. He says, my truth does not make your truth a lie. We must
make it untrue.
It doesn't make it untrue. Do you understand me? We must recognize these fundamentals. So far, we have not been able to have that Nigerian leader who comes in colorblind. The Anang man, the Edo man, the Hausa man, the Ibira man, he sees them as Nigerians having the same right. The moment we are able to establish those fundamentals, we will be able to begin the process of nationhood.
We'll attempt to answer the questions to why and how do we sort this out moving forward. When we come back in a moment, don't go away.